Our life. Okay, so I got caught up here because I didn't listen to my reminder. So we were discussing dependencies, the last part of the document that which kind of describes the additional information like the diagrams or mockups that you did not put everything in the body of the document or anything additional that needs to go here, and then the glossary of terms and yeah, so on. So from here I want to transition into saying that, let's say that we have written this BRD to the case that we have been discussing, and let's say that it was approved by the client without comments. So they have seen everything that they wanted to see, everything is there, they approved it. Now we are ready to dive deeper as business analysts and start creating the use cases or user stories and additional diagrams that might be needed. The reason I say additional because in the middle of this section, somewhere here, we describe that we have the current state and future state, which we refer it as is and to be states of diagram. And then this language is more as is and to be is like a jargon for technical team and BA understands, but for the users they may not understand as is and to be. So the better wording for them will be current state and future state, more like a business language compared to the technical or BA jargon. So, as I was mentioning earlier, there are different ways of documenting the business requirements for the IT team from the business requirements. And then mostly these are either use case or user story formats. And since use cases are barely used nowadays because of a lot of companies, I mean, the use case and waterfall, right? Those two that are, we tied them together a few minutes ago. They're used with the companies. They were used more frequently about 10 years ago. Nowadays, it's more agile or hybrid, and then agile binds with user stories. This is the one.
Oh, that's not it.
Boy. I think, oh, it has a clear option. I didn't even know it. I think it was bottom. Oh, something got this cleared. Okay, anyways, agile, user story, use case, waterfall. So now I wanted to show you once again waterfall and use case, because of they're not frequently used anymore. I'm not gonna spend way too much time on it, but I want to still show you a visual what it would look like if you had a use case, and then we would go into showing you how the user stories looks like in agile and hybrid, and what's the template and what's an example. So we will do a similar rundown with user story like we did for BRD, but we will look at it more specifically with an example that you're familiar with, because user story is a lot simpler than BRD. So I want to show you a use case example directly from Google to kind of give you an impression of what use case diagram looks like. And just taking a simple example, if one of these will finally open, you can see how cumbersome and how complicated sometimes it can get. While this is simple, but it's just a lot of work of setting this up. So it's just like describing the user and then what happens in the system and what this is supposed to be actions. So which the user and an action they're taking and what may be the outcome of that action, that if system is more complicated. So this is sort of like a use case diagram that used to describe the specific requirement in waterfall. And then I guess this is another good example that describes a little bit more of actor, use case. If it includes this condition, this happens, and if it includes this and then that happens. So it gets sometimes very complicated because of the some of the projects may also get complicated. But agile approach of creating user stories, which is equivalent to this, but with an approach in a different methodology, different format, things will change quite significantly. So again, like I'm just kind of scrolling through to show you how the use cases may change depending of the requirement, and then depending of how many actors might be, users, and then what kind of different systems it may be interacting with, and so on. But we're not gonna spend too much time on the use case diagrams because they're not so frequently used. Yeah. Um, so good question. Let's go back to our example here. And I think I will give you another.
So yeah, in that case, user is the client, like how the client
Exactly.
interacts with the system. That's what the use case diagram shows. The client interaction or end user interaction with the system.
Right. So if you're taking the payment application for Amazon, right, the screen that we're familiar with, the actor in that case will be any user. It could be you because you use Amazon too. You go to that page as a user. So actor in the use case describes a user interacting with the system, whatever the system might be.
Was that your question, Sava?
Mhm.
User stories.
Yeah. So now we're gonna take a quick look at of the user story. So user story has a little bit more of a business approach, I would say. It's less technical. You don't do a lot of drawing of the diagrams within the user story, although some of the user stories may get complex and may require additional diagrams as a separate artifact, which we will review it separately based on the needs, based on the needs of the project, but we will review it as part of our review. So right now we're gonna look at the user story format. But let's first read what the user story. A user story is a short, simple description of feature told from the perspective of the end user. So there you go. That perfectly answers Saba's question. Um, it's commonly used in agile methodologies to capture users' needs clearly and structured. Okay. Um, Somewhat simple and straightforward description, right? Then let's go quickly to this user story template format. As a type of the user, okay, as a banking user or as a patient user for some kind of clinical platform, I want to pay my bill or do something, right? Some kind of action. And so that I get this goal, so that my bill is paid, right? I don't get any emails that you have to pay the bill. So this format essentially replaces the use case complex diagrams that we were looking at earlier. um, and it's a lot straightforward for the developer to understand because you are, so let's look at the example more specifically actually. So as a user, patient, admin, customer, visitor, whatever the case is, I want to, you describe the action. Well, I essentially it repeats the same thing for me, so that then you explain what the benefit is. Um, Actually, I think I opened the wrong thing. This is what I wanted to show, but it's good that we still have the knowledge of the format. But this one incorporates the example, right? So in user story one, we're talking about the patient booking an appointment online. I'm sure some of you might have done this procedure or this process online, booking some kind of appointment. So as a patient, right? So we know the user is this person. I want to view available appointment slots and book online so that I can schedule my visit conveniently without calling the clinic, right? Is not this a lot simpler than that diagram? and more straightforward, in your opinion? And also, mhm. Come again? Uh-huh. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. So I want to answer your question a little bit more broadly so that you can reference where we're coming from. So now that you mentioned about the website, so let's say this is the website, and this is a payment website. I mean, not payment, this one, patient portal, right? And then it gives some information about the insurances and a bunch of different kind of crap. And then there is no option for you as a user to make an appointment. So you have to call, but you don't want to do that, right? Because they're going to put you on hold and it's going to take forever. So the request from the user is add the feature, right? Right. So this is the request from the user. And as we know by now that when this feature is requested, it has to go through some kind of process talking with PM. And at some point in the process, BRD is created, and then BRD is approved. And after BRD is approved, a user story is created to build this feature in here, right? So this feature that's gonna here, what was my story?
Patient.
Patient booking, right? Let's just say booking here. Sal is gonna hate my handwriting, but I'm trying my best. So does it make sense, Saba? So you are a person on this website. This feature doesn't exist, and then you as a client, you're requesting this feature. So you hired your technical team. Your technical team came to you. They did some kind of requirements elicitation session. They got the requirements, what you had in mind, this thing. So now technical team knows what the feature is about. The technical team BA gave you a BRD with all the things that you described to him about this. And a BRD was done by BA. You approved it, and then as a result of BRD being approved, we know what the price is, what the timeline is, what kind of promises BA made to you that this feature will include. And then BA created the user story, and user story was given to the developers to develop it. And then after development was done, then this feature is now available to you.
Right. Yeah. And to just add to that, you mentioned about the add-on, Saba. So I think you're referring to add-on requirements. So those add-on requirements are usually something that was not part of the original requirement but was added later on. So in the example that David showed, like this would be the major requirement, right? The client wants to implement a online booking system. But an add-on could be, the user should receive like a notification once their appointment has been booked or something, right? Something that was not part of the original requirement. It was added later
But
on.
this is also add-on in this case. The website has existed before 10 years ago. It was still there. But yes,
Oh, okay,
exactly.
okay,
Yes. So
gotcha.
this is the
Yeah.
new. This is the add-on.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Very good question. All right. So coming back in here. So now we have described what the user wants. That they want this ability to have this thing right here. But if this is here, right, we add this in here. But there is a lot more things behind this that should be BA should document for a developer so that they can develop it, right? Because when I click in here, what should happen? It should take you to some kind of page where you enter your information, right? Your insurance, your payment information, this and that. those has to be breaking down in some sort of form. And in the user story sample, we call those acceptance criteria, such as patient can log in using the registered email and phone, patient sees a list of available time slots for selected doctors. These acceptance criteria are rather more high level, but essentially gives you an idea what user story kind of entails to do, right? You have the function that you want to do, and then what are the details of that function? Are you guys still following? Okay.
So I guess in short, the acceptance criteria is everything that must like there's a specific definition for acceptance criteria, like what needs to be done in the system so that this user story is accepted by the client, right? Like
Uh-huh.
all the features and all the, I guess, functional non-functional requirements, and we'll talk about that later, but everything that needs to be accepted by the user, like you just list everything out.
Right. Oh,
What's the formal
another
definition
reminder.
of it? No, it's something else.
So, and then the acceptance criteria way it needs to be written, it has its own format, and this is kind of what I was switching to. Um, perfect, like Agile tells you to write things in a format that it it has, but companies and places they modify the format as they need to. But in the perfect world, the acceptance criteria writing format is like this. You have to start with a given, so you're giving some kind of condition first, and then you say when user takes some kind of action, then outcome happens. So if we come back to this example, in this specific one, the way it should have been written would be, I think I'm gonna just do this way. I'll just make a space. Given that a patient is registered, given that a patient is registered already, when patient selects book appointment, then second, given that patient is registered, this is redundant, I'm just making it complicated. Patient given that registered, when patient selects book appointment, then the system shows the page to log in, right? I just make it very simple one. Following this example, if I click here, right, and then I'm already registered and I'm already signed in, because that's the precondition for you. When I click here, then it should show me a next page where I will do sign in process. Then your another acceptance criteria might be, I'm gonna just show one more and then we'll move on, because that's gonna be another one that will. Okay, so now I'm gonna copy the most of it and say that given the patient is not registered, when patient selects a book appointment, then the system shows the page to log in, page to register, right? So are you guys kind of following what kind of how the acceptance criteria is with the format that is to be written and how it's written? Exactly. That's exactly true. It's step by step, and you have to remember what the main goal is. Main goal is what the user needs to do. They need to be able to schedule, view available, right? As a patient, I want to view available appointment slots and book online. So their goal is to schedule it, and then they want to be able to see available slots, right? So your subsequent criterias would be around having the system to show um, available slots in the book online. So you start from the beginning in the process. The first, it has to be either registered or not registered. And another part that would need to be here in is that the patient is registered. Um, yeah, actually, yeah. So you go step by step from here. It's logged in, and then I would probably separate it in my case. Like if you're not logged in, then the steps may be a little differently than for the user that is already logged in, and the steps in case here will be different. Should I continue describing the example or dive into
Um,
the diagrams?
I mean, it's up to them, right? You can ask.
So do you guys think it will be helpful if I review a couple more acceptance criteria based on this user story? Um, or do you think it's straightforward enough for you to tackle something like this by your own? Because what I like to do is give you a homework of writing the user story and acceptance criteria. It's not going to be perfect, but I want you to guys at least use the format describing user story with this format and acceptance criteria of some detail. And I will use either bank internal transfer system or payment applications, something that we are more familiar with. But I don't want to give you homework and then have you guys shoot in the dark and not knowing what to do. I want to give you a little bit more guided. So, do you think that's enough of guidance, or I should give a little bit more depth of acceptance criteria and user stories? So let's spend another 5 to 10 minutes giving more putting more criteria here based on what we have written. Okay, so I'm gonna need your help heavily. So now we're focusing on the first acceptance criteria. Given the patient is registered, when patient selects book appointment, then the system shows the page login. Okay. So now what do you think next the given statement would be after system shows the login? No, 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 hold on. Sava, we're going step by step. You are in a good track. But before customer logs in, what customer has to do? What's our condition before logging in? Exactly. What kind of information? What kind of information during login do you normally enter? Exactly. No, 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 no. We're not registering. We're logging in. We're already registered. Exactly. So maybe for the purpose of this exercise, let's group the acceptance criteria. Normally, you won't do it, but sometimes I group them in my stories, in my real work. But let's make this focus. Acceptance criteria. Right now, we're focusing on this one, and in here, we're talking about um, registered user trying to log in. Register user, maybe log in. Simple, right? And the reason I write this more specifically is that I want you to keep focusing that we're talking about the registered user who's trying to log in, right? And this is what that first user story is about. I mean, not user story, the acceptance criteria, and then we're gonna continue building up on this one in summary of that. The reason I say it is that I want to make a similar line here with a different color, and then in here will be not registered user login, which the acceptance criteria flow will be different. Okay, so now let's do that. Given that a patient has entered email ID and password. I didn't mean to highlight patient. I wanted to highlight this one because these are the keywords that we're following, right? Given that the patient has entered email ID and password, what's the next step? What what's the next step that we need to do here? No, no, no. Follow. We're doing the step by step, right? So we are saying that in the first one, precondition is that user is registered, but when user clicks on the book appointment button, then the system shows the page to log in, right? So now you imagine that you're on the login page. Next step is that patient has entered email ID and password, and when patient does what? Exactly, clicks login, then what happens? Guys, there is a one step, and then during the last session, Sally, you say that it was that long word that we don't use it daily, but that should happen before you go to the login page.
I mean, before you go to the booking appointment page.
Before you
You're
go into the booking appointment page, what's that? What's the first thing? So think of a step by step, right? You enter email and ID. What if you enter the wrong password? Do you think we should take you directly to the booking page? It's not your account, right? And then the system, yes, the system authenticates you, right? So now authentication part is done. Then we have another given. Given that, what's next? The system has authenticated you. Mhm. In this case, we don't need the when. Then we can say, given the system has authenticated you, then the the user lands on the appointment available. No, appointment page. Appointment um, booking page. Okay. So now you're on appointment booking page, and you need to select the you need to view available appointment slots, right? What's your next acceptance criteria? Yeah, but give me in this format because we write this right. Okay, 1 second. Okay, okay, okay. Hold on. Everyone, exactly. We want the transition.
very nice.
All right, and I know you're following. Okay. You guys have everyone. You guys have a good ideas. We're just trying to structure them in the way the user story is asking, so we can follow the goal of the user story and then the focused area of acceptance criteria. So we're going into the detail of a detail and then following step by step. Because if developer does not code this specific acceptance criteria, then this one won't work because you don't have the transition point. You need to transition it. So let's write the last one and then I'll share one more thing. So given the user is on the appointment booking page. Given the user, oops, is on the appointment booking page. So maybe a little bit of my experience here, but when you are on the appointment booking page, I would imagine it will be some sort of section where you have to select the available appointment slots, right? Otherwise, the entire page may not be most likely dedicated to the available appointment slots. Like you just have to select, because like these kind of portals, they're crowded with information. Just let's be honest. Anywhere you log in, it's just a bunch of settings and then a bunch of things that's there. So you need to navigate yourself to the right area of the page in order to do that next step, right? And then right now we're trying to think of out of our imagination of what may look like. And then now you can see how some of the work that we have done earlier might have helped, like a mock-up or a wireframe or a diagram that we could follow to write this and make our lives simpler and easier. Because essentially, when we start explaining these acceptance criteria to the developers, they will have hard time follow too unless they have some kind of a mock-up or a diagram. Okay, so that's why it's important for a business analyst to create a diagram or markups in advance so you can make your life easier when writing the user story, plus when you're explaining the user story to the developer after the user story has been written. Are you guys following? So I'm not gonna fully kind of continue. I mean, we can finish this up because given on the appointment booking page, when user selects available, what was that? Available slots button or link, whatever that is, then the system will show that specific feature, right? That feature. So any further steps kind of gonna go like where you left off. You left off here, then that's gonna be your condition. And then user clicks this and then this happens. And it just goes continuously. um, some during the review of the user stories with developers may request that stories are breaking down because this is too large or a lot of things happening, so may ask like let's have one user story for the registered user login, and then let's have a separate user story for a not registered user login, so this way you don't accept this criteria. Your acceptance criteria doesn't have to get 20 pages long. You can just create two stories in Jira, which is the tool where the stories are written in, although you can create in Word document and then you can transfer them over. It's really options to you that you have available at your disposal. So in one of the future discussions we will talk about how tickets are created in Jira system, and I will do a live demo of pretty much we have written a user story right now, and then how that's going to go into the ticketing system that is used, and then that's kind of travels from business analyst to a developer to a tester, and at the end to the production of the working code. Are you guys following kind of the flow of where we coming from the requirement to a BRD? BRD is approved, then we produce the user story, and then this is the format of the user story. And then from here, we communicate this information to a developer with some kind of help of visual representation, whether it's a diagram or it's a mock-up or something else, so they can better understand what we are putting in here, what user wants and what user needs. If you're following this far, I think we're making a great progress. If you're thinking that you are not following or you have some questions, please let me know so I can go over them, because once we move forward, this is like a core fundamentals to have. Okay. Amit on both.
Magismeni diagramı ve mikropro next class galaktot. Do you have any questions? Do a recap. We have 10 minutes.
Oh, so because of we only have 10 minutes left, I wanted to show you a little bit of some of the different kind of diagrams that a user stories. You can accompany with the user stories when explaining the user stories to the developers, so they better understand all these details and how one step follows the next step and the next step, so on. They need to see it in the diagrams, and then that's where the different kind of diagrams come into the play. So I'm gonna keep the diagrams for the next session because it won't make sense to do it now. We won't be able to get through one or two maybe. So I don't want to do that right now. So we'll keep that for the future one. But so I guess I'm gonna pause here, and then I want to ask the follow-up questions to you because I talk so much, and you talk also quite a bit. But I'm gonna make you talk even more now, so you can catch up my talking. um, Let me update this one so I don't lose it. So tell me what you think the prime or main purpose of the business requirements document or BRD is. Like, why does BA need to write it? What's the whole point about business requirements document, which is this guy? Okay. Okay. Very good perspective. Anyone else wants to chime in? I don't want to call you guys, but call you guys out. But I want to hear a small takeaways that you might have had too. Right. Can you have project without it? And then if you do, mm, maybe because like some places they may not require it, as I said earlier, but in place of this, they may require something similar. Yes, you're correct. So now to sum up what Waho said and what Saba said, because both are very valid points and good points. Um, it's essential document because it has this all these important crucial parts you want to have there, which is approved by the client, so that it it takes you towards the project success, right? Because the BRD or whatever alternative document the company may ask you to do shall include the budgets, timeline. This is kind of what some of the PMs also help with incorporating in the BRD. But the budget, timeline, high level requirements, what's in the scope, what's outside of scope, and the overall executive summary, like why this project is taking place, and what's the background, and what's the problem that we're trying to solve. So once the stakeholder signs this, and you guys do the work, if the stakeholder comes back and tell you that I didn't tell you to do this, hey, it was in a document, you signed it, you have something to back off. It's not going to be a complete failure. You will be able to deliver at least something to the user. Maybe they don't like it because of whatever reasons, but you have the documentation, you have proof that you have done all the due diligence from your side to make sure that user have understood what kind of development was being done. This is like a cornerstone document that has to be done. Eh, um, does it make sense? I guess this is my favorite word in this class. Does it make sense? Okay. Okay. um All right, we have 5 minutes. So what I was thinking for the rest of the 5 minutes, it's a whole lot. I really wanted to for the next class task you guys with the user story. So let me kind of go back to what we have here. Um, do you guys think, based on what we have reviewed and with the homework that I will assign to you, which I have not created, but I will create and send it to you so you can look at it in these pages, one of these pages, it's going to be a simple requirement where you should put this up and then maybe have 3 or 4 maximum acceptance criterias. Um, so using this example and in the format that we have here, do you think you'll be able to um, work on the user story? Like, do you have enough understanding of be able to tackle this? Great. Okay, Anna, good question. It's an excellent question. So right now, in the beginning, in the phases of our practices, we will document in the Word document, because that's the easiest way when you're communicating requirements with any stakeholder, including me, because we don't have access to Jira system yet, and that's a separate topic. But when you are creating a minutes, user story, BRD, anything on your side, then one best way to send it to me is email, and you're not going to copy and paste in everything in the email. So the best way to do it is adding in the Word document and attaching the Word document and sending it over to me. The beauty of the Word document also is that a stakeholder like me will be able to give you a comments in the Word document that you can follow of what part of the comment or what part of the section that I'm commenting on. So let's use the Word document for this exercise. And then the other reason why I wanted to like don't do too much of the detail and still, what's my time? Still
Five
have
minutes.
you what is the right word? Tackle. They tackle um the assignment is because you may come across in the real job situation where you have to struggle of writing the user story, and the best way to get out of it is asking questions. um, you can ask questions to each other, or you can ask questions to me. That was sort of kind of the main point why I wanted to have this WhatsApp thing, WhatsApp what is a group chat going, so we can ask each other questions. And it's not a shame to ask question, because that's going to be your primary resource when you get the job as a business analyst. You will ask bunch of questions about the project. No question is a stupid question, because you're going to be new to some kind of project, and there is somebody who's been there before you. They know a lot more than you do, so you're going to be asking questions left and right. So take that as an example and use this situation also as a real life project. And if you have a question about the homework that I will give you and it doesn't make sense, or you have a question, just ask. Put a voice chat in the WhatsApp or a message or whatever that is. Uh, Maybe I'll get back to you. Maybe someone else wants to tackle it and then get back to you. Just utilize it. Excellent. Go for it. Yes. Um, so I'm gonna send you a link where I will describe a requirement, a summary. I'll give you a summary of the requirement. So what you will be asked to do is pretty much something similar. So I will give you also format. How are you gonna write it? So it's gonna be like user story, name of the user story, and as a and then you will put who the user is. I want, so I'll give you the template to kind of fill it up so you can follow. Yeah. And then, like I said, I will not make a large story like this one because it has multiple acceptance criteria to write. First about being login, second about this one, and then third about this one. So this one is actually, in my practical experience, I would break this down. I would break down this story at least to three different stories and its own acceptance criteria, so it doesn't get too crazy. But I picked and I wrote this one specifically this way for us to review, so I could break it down to. I could show you how ACs get more involved and involved, and how it may need to require making it smaller, which we call it, you split it into different two different stories or three different as you sound business, um, required by the business. Okay. Let me kind of look at what are we with time. We have a few minutes more left, so I'll send you the homework related details and then the timeline when it needs to be done. um yeah, I think I'm pretty much through with all my stuff with you guys. So we can take another 10 minutes and come back to a third line. And then it will be your show. You will ask your questions and then I will answer them. Um, yeah, let's do 110 and we'll just be on there. Yes. It's for 1 hour, however much time we need. I cannot put more than 1 hour, but we can use as much as we want up to 1 hour. Cool. See you guys soon.
Okay.